What's up guys, my name is C-Brev. Today we got a super fun video for y'all. I'm going to be going through the top players for each MLB team that have not yet received a Signature Series card on MLB The Show 19. So I want to remind you guys to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And we're just going to start with the Orioles and the AL East and just go right through every team. Now the Orioles have several guys who haven't gotten a Signature Series card yet that are definitely deserving, but the number one that I'm looking forward to is hopefully we get a Signature Series Zach Britton. This game is in desperate need of some more competitive lefties, and I just think a Signature Series Zach Britton would be absolutely sick on this game, as I think most people would agree. Some honorable mentions for the Orioles is Chris Davis. Obviously he's had a long, great career, lots of success. I think a Signature Series Chris Davis card would be pretty fun. And then finally, I would love to see a Signature Series Nick Markakis. This guy has had one of the most solid careers, just steady, staying healthy, being slightly above average his whole career. I think he's had an amazing career, and I would love to see a Signature Series card for Nick Markakis. For the Red Sox, I think the number one guy deserving of a SIG, granted it probably won't be a very good one, for the Red Sox that hasn't been covered yet is Rick Porcello. He's a great vet, has had a pretty good career. Would love to see a Signature Series card for Rick Porcello. In addition, the Red Sox could get a Signature Series Jacoby Ellsbury. I think he would be a Red Sox over a Yankee probably on his SIG card. Great years with the Red Sox. Still looking for a Signature Series Cy Young as well. Not sure if they'll give us one this year since his veteran card is already a 96. And then just an honorable mention that you might not think about, I think Clay Buchholz might also be worthy of a Signature Series card, so that would be pretty cool as well. For the Yankees, a couple of old-timers that are huge in Yankees lore. Number one, Don Mattingly, played his whole career with the Yankees, had a pretty great career, and played a lot of years there where they weren't having much success. So a Signature Series Don Mattingly would be more than deserving, and I think it would be a pretty cool card. In addition, we still have yet to see a Signature Series Rich Gossage. Kind of like with Cy Young, I don't know how much better a Sig Goose Gossage would be than this card, but still something to think about. A Signature Series Goose Gossage would be pretty cool. And then just an honorable mention for the Yankees as well. I think Brett Gardner is probably worthy of a Signature Series card. He's kind of along the same lines in his career path as Alex Gordon was, and Alex Gordon has a SIG series on this game, so I think a Signature Series Brett Gardner would be pretty legit. For the Tampa Bay Rays, a lot of lower end guys that are debatably worthy of a SIG. But this is not one of them. I think Ben Zobrist is definitely worthy of a SIG and would love to see a Signature Series Ben Zobrist in the game. Would definitely be a Ray as well. Another Tampa Bay Ray that I would love to see a Signature Series card of is James Shields. I think he's had a pretty good career, and I would love to see a James Shields Signature Series for the Rays. Couple of honorable mentions for them as well, some guys you might not think about. Chris Archer, probably not a good enough career, but you never know. And then a couple guys, Matt Joyce and Steven Souza Jr. maybe could get SIG cards. Those would be pretty legit for the Tampa Bay Rays. The Toronto Blue Jays, two pretty obvious ones that I'm surprised we haven't seen in the game yet, honestly. Obviously, a Signature Series Jose Bautista, Joey Bats would be sick on this game. Additionally, we've yet to see a Signature Series Joe Carter either. Both of these guys are pretty prevalent for the history of the Toronto Blue Jays, and like I said, I'm surprised we haven't seen a SIG card for either of them yet, but I anticipate at some point we'd definitely be getting one for both. Jumping on over to the AL Central with the Chicago White Sox, I could really only find one that we don't have in the game, but it's a big one for the White Sox. No Paul Konerko yet, surprisingly. No Signature Series Paul Konerko, definitely deserving. Had a wonderful career with the White Sox, and I would absolutely love to see a Signature Series Paul Konerko in MLB The Show 19. For the Cleveland Indians, a couple of old vets. One guy who I think is definitely deserving of a SIG at this point of in his career, Michael Brantley. Another old-timer that you might not think about that would be a pretty cool Signature Series card is Jason Kipnis, and maybe also Asdrubal Cabrera, maybe both worthy of Signature Series cards. We'll see. Additionally, for the Indians, we have yet to see a Signature Series Kenny Lofton. A SIG Series Kenny Lofton on this card would be absolutely disgusting, and I would definitely be using that card. That card would be sick. And then another guy that I really don't want to talk about, but is probably worth talking about that we haven't seen yet, and honestly, hopefully we don't see him the whole year, is Luis Tiant, because I do not want to face those knuckleballs. The Detroit Tigers, one very obvious one that I would love to see before the game rotates out is Miguel Cabrera. A signature series Miguel Cabrera would be amazing. Also for the Tigers, we definitely need to see a signature series Alan Trammell as well. I'm surprised we haven't seen one, and honestly a lot of the guys that you get from the XP reward that aren't SIGs don't have SIGs yet, which is pretty interesting. Another couple honorable mentions for the Tigers, maybe Hal Newhouser could be a SIG card, but I don't know how much better it would be than this one. And then also Austin Jackson, someone to think about, that would be pretty cool. Kansas City Royals, one huge one that I'm surprised we haven't seen yet is Brett Saberhagen. Thought for sure we'd get a Brett Saberhagen signature series card at some point during this year. Maybe we still will. And then another honorable mention for the Royals, I would love to see a signature series Joakim Soria card. That guy has just been gritting it out, was a dominant closer for a couple years there in KC, and has kept his career going ever since, even though he hasn't been nearly as dominant. So I think he's had a long enough career, enough success to get kind of a lower tier SIG, and I think it would be pretty cool. For the Minnesota Twins, signature series Francisco Liriano would be amazing. I definitely think he's worthy. He's had a great career, a nice long career, and was really dominant when he first came up in the league, and would definitely be super fun to use on this game. So I hope we get one of these signature series Francisco Liriano. Also for the Twins, maybe a Walter Johnson signature series would be pretty cool. And then someone still in the league right now that I think would be cool for the Twins is Brian Dozier. I think a signature series Brian Dozier may be warranted at this point. He had a lot of great careers in Minnesota, and I would love to see that one. Heading on over to the AL West now with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Obviously, we all know we're probably getting a signature series of Mike Trout at some point in the year. We're all looking forward to that card. That card would be sick. But another guy that might be a good SIG for the Angels would be Kendrys Morales. This guy had an amazing start to his career and was actually on his way to winning an MVP when he tore his ACL jumping on home plate after a walk-off. Wasn't really the same player after that, but still had a nice long career. Still was one of the better hitters, especially switch hitters, that I definitely watched growing up. So that would be pretty cool to see a signature series Kendrys Morales. And hate to talk about it, but I also think a signature series Tyler Skaggs would be pretty cool. They would definitely have to make him free and easy to get. Maybe like just do the moment where you get the last 3 outs of the Angels no-hitter to get a signature series Tyler Skaggs. I think that would be pretty legit. Moving over to my favorite team, the Oakland A's. There's 3 really big names that are deserving of SIGs that we haven't seen yet, which is pretty surprising. The most important one, I think, for the gameplay would be Jimmy Fox. A signature series Jimmy Fox would be so good on this game. His swing is so nice. The other 2 guys would be Jason Giambi. We'd love to see a signature series Jason Giambi, although debatably he would be a Yankee on his SIG card, not really sure. It's kind of up in the air between A's and Yankees on that one. And then also signature series Vita Blue, I'm surprised they haven't come out with yet either. That card would be pretty cool, and I'd be surprised if they added kind of an old timers pitch to kind of juice his SIG cards like they have with a lot of other signature series pitchers. Maybe give him a forkball or something. That would definitely make this card interesting. The Seattle Mariners, one of the most disappointing players to not have received a SIG card yet, in my opinion, Ichiro Suzuki. SDS, please, this is probably the last year he's going to be in the game. It's almost December. We need a signature series Ichiro Suzuki card. It would be so legit. I'm honestly shocked they haven't put one out yet, but here's hoping at least maybe we'll get to play with him in the last 3 months of the game cycle. Additionally, for the Mariners, haven't seen a signature series Brett Boone yet either, which is pretty disappointing. Another all-time great for the Seattle Mariners, who they just recently got his rights to this year, I want to say. That would be another nice option at second base and would be a pretty cool signature series card. Going over the Texas Rangers, there's a few guys that are debatably SIGs, but I think that would be pretty cool in the game. If we could get a signature series Yu Darvish, that would be absolutely legit. He's been in the league for many years now and had a pretty good career, so I don't think a signature series Yu Darvish would be out of the question. Would be pretty awesome for the Texas Rangers. A couple other guys to think about that are maybe deserving of SIGs that would be pretty cool. Derek Holland has had a nice career and would be a left-handed pitcher with a sinker, which would be pretty interesting to use online. And then also Shin-Soo Choo, another guy you don't really think about that's had a pretty good career that is maybe deserving of a SIG card. His defense would probably be terrible, but you never know. Would still be fun to try him out. Rounding it out for the American League, the Houston Astros. One big one that we haven't seen yet that I'm surprised we haven't seen is Mike Scott. Mike Scott had a great career, and especially with being a splitter primary, I think a signature series of Mike Scott would be super interesting to pitch with, and definitely one of the more unique cards in the game. Would love to see it. Other than that, the Astros were pretty scarce, but I will personally say, in my opinion, it would be pretty cool to see a signature series Dallas Keuchel. I don't know how much longer Keuchel is going to be in the league or if anyone's going to sign him this year. This is a guy who pushed hard for a Cy Young 2 out of 3 years and won it once. A signature series Dallas Keuchel would be unique again and would definitely be something interesting, and I don't see why not. Maybe they can give him a SIG just based off his 3-year peak, but would love to see it. But like I said, the Astros have pretty much everyone covered at this point. Moving over to the National League now, the National League East in the Atlanta Braves. One tragic card that we have not seen a signature series for yet is Andrew Jones. I think a signature series Andrew Jones would be a beast. His fielding stats would be off the charts, and I would definitely love to use that card in game. The Braves actually have a ton of guys that haven't gotten SIGs yet. Another one, Joe Torre, would be an amazing SIG card. Dale Murphy yet to receive a signature series card. Additionally, we haven't seen a Phil Niekro yet. Hopefully we can see him next year and not this year when knuckleballs aren't as OP. Would not like to see a Phil Niekro. Eddie Matthews, no signature series card yet, and then obviously a lot of chirping for Freddie Freeman signature series card, which would be pretty cool also. And finally Warren Spahn. So a lot of Atlanta Braves cards, Milwaukee Braves guys too, Boston Braves that have not received signature series cards yet in the game cycle. For the Florida Marlins, one big one, AJ Burnett. I'm pretty sure they just got his rights this year, so I'm surprised they didn't put out a signature series card of him yet. Would be pretty cool. One of the more prevalent Marlins I remember watching growing up before he moved on to other teams. Another one that comes to mind is Marcell Ozuna, maybe deserving of a signature series card, as well as Anibal Sanchez with the career he's had. Not sure if he'd be a Marlin, maybe he'd be a Tiger, but just someone to think about. The Washington Nationals, actually pretty difficult to find players for. They've pretty much covered all of the players that have had significant careers with the Expos and Nationals, aside from Pedro Martinez and Larry Walker, obviously, who are not in the game at the moment. But just a couple of guys to think about. Gio Gonzalez comes to mind. Has had a pretty long career, had a nasty curveball coming up with the A's organization, and has stretched his career out pretty long for a curveball thrower, which I think is pretty cool, and did most of his damage as a Washington National. Another one to think about, pretty borderline, but I think maybe Sean Doolittle deserves one at this point. He's been a pretty dominant lefty reliever for the better part of 5 years now when he wasn't hurt, so definitely someone to think about for the Washington Nationals. Congrats on the World Series championship. The New York Mets, I think at this point in his career, Daniel Murphy is probably deserving of a signature series card, and that would be another lefty bat at second base, which would always be nice since seems like we can never get enough second basemen on this game, and Daniel Murphy always has a super nice swing, so seeing a signature series Daniel Murphy card on this game would be pretty legit. I would also like to see a signature series Yoenis Cespedes. That would be pretty legit. Would have incredible defense, and I think he'd probably be a Met on his signature series card as well. Rounding out the NL East is the Philadelphia Phillies with another jaw dropper. I cannot believe we haven't seen a signature series Mike Schmidt yet. Hopefully we see one soon. This is a card I was definitely looking forward to using from a signature series perspective, and we can only hope that we just get him in the game cycle soon so we can use him well for the last couple of months. Another guy that hasn't gotten a SIG series card yet that was pretty surprising for me because they just got his rights this year as well, is Cliff Lee. I think a Signature Series Cliff Lee would be super fun to pitch with, especially with a two-seam fastball primary and a cutter and a circle change. I think that card actually has the potential to be nasty if they don't make his per nines too low, and I would absolutely love to try out a Signature Series Cliff Lee. Heading on over to the NL Central and the Chicago Cubs, another guy that I need to see a Signature Series card of. They did just give Kerry Wood a Signature Series, so that gives me hope that we will see a Signature Series Mark Prior. I think that card will be disgusting. Any card that's a starting pitcher and throws a slurve is going to be gross, and I think a Signature Series Mark Prior would be so much fun to use on this game. Additionally, for the Cubs, maybe at this point in his career we could get a Signature Series Jake Arrieta, which would also be a disgusting card. These Cubs starting pitchers, if they get SIGs, look out in ranked seasons. And then one last guy is an honorable mention. Jeff Samardzija may be deserving of a Signature Series card at this point in his career. Had some great years with the Cubs and had a nice long career, so that would be pretty cool to see him in the game as a Signature Series. For the Cincinnati Reds, a couple of big name guys that once again I'm surprised we haven't seen SIG cards of yet. Barry Larkin, we for sure are getting a Signature Series card for at some point. I just don't know when or how good it'll be, but it will definitely be a fun card to use. Additionally, for the Reds, Johnny Cueto I think is deserving of a Signature Series card, and he would definitely be a Red on his SIG card, I would think. Some of his best years as a Cincinnati Red. Also, Eric Davis, haven't seen a Signature Series card for him yet. A big deal for the Big Red Machine. And then just a couple guys to think about. I looked at Rob Dibble's stats in real life, and he actually probably isn't deserving of a SIG. Actually had a super short career, only pitched for 7 years, even though some of those years were super dominant. So that was pretty surprising to me. But a couple more guys to think about for Cincinnati would be Homer Bailey and Edinson Volquez. Just a couple of guys that have been in the league for a long time that would be interesting choices for Signature Series cards. Milwaukee Brewers, a team that they've done a great job giving SIGs for a lot of their guys throughout their history that they have the rights to currently. But I think Carlos Gomez probably deserving of a lower tier Signature Series card. Would have had great defense and speed on that SIG card, so that would definitely be interesting to look at. Additionally, for the Milwaukee Brewers, you can make the argument for a Jonathan Lucroy Signature Series. He's had a pretty good career. And then also one more guy that you don't typically think about is Giovanni Gallardo. He's had an incredibly long career, and most of his good years were in Milwaukee, so that would be an interesting guy to see as a Signature Series card for sure. The Pittsburgh Pirates, another team that has done a great job giving Signature Series cards to most of the players that they have in the game currently, that they have the rights to. One guy they haven't done yet is Ralph Kiner. Not sure how much better a Signature Series Kiner would be than this card, but you never know. Wouldn't hurt to put him in. Would be pretty cool to see a Signature Series Ralph Kiner. As far as other Pittsburgh Pirates that we haven't seen SIGs yet for that we might see, maybe a Signature Series Mark Melancon would be pretty cool. He's had some great years as a Pirate and has been in the league for a long time. And then a couple more guys, maybe a Josh Harrison or Neil Walker, would be deserving of a SIG card at this point in their career. The last team in the NL Central, the St. Louis Cardinals, this is probably the worst one. How have we not seen Signature Series Albert Pujols yet? It's absolutely tragic that we haven't gotten to use a SIG Series Pujols card yet this year, especially this being the first year of SIG Series. Please get this out to us soon, STS. I want to try this card so bad. Another guy great in Cardinals lore that we haven't seen a SIG Series card yet for is Stan Musial, which would also be a beastly card, probably pretty similar to Ted Williams. And then one more guy to think about for the Cardinals that we haven't seen yet that might deserve a SIG card is David Freese. David Freese is retiring after this year, so I would love to see a Signature Series card for him. One of the most iconic playoff performances ever for this team, and definitely a huge part of St. Louis Cardinals lore, so let's get that guy a Signature Series card. Moving on to the last division, the NL West and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Huge card here that we'll probably definitely see at some point is the Signature Series Steve Finley. Steve Finley's swing is super glitchy on this game, so I would love to see a Signature Series Steve Finley come out at some point. Some additional guys for the Diamondbacks maybe to think about would be someone like Ian Kennedy, who has had a really long career, had some good years as a starter for the Diamondbacks. Jake Lamb, maybe a veteran now, and then also Nick Ahmed has won several Gold Gloves now as the best shortstop in the National League, so not that far off from thinking maybe he could get a Signature Series card as well. For the Colorado Rockies, another team that's not really a whole lot to go off of. They've kind of covered a lot of the players in Rockies lore that they have the rights to. But one guy they haven't done yet, I would like to see Signature Series Chris Iannetta. I think that would be pretty cool. Some other guys for the Rockies that come to mind, maybe Ian Desmond, although I'm sure he wouldn't be a Rocky on a Signature Series card. But he currently plays for the Rockies. Maybe that's one that would get a National Signature Series card. That would be pretty cool. And also maybe at this point in his career, Charlie Blackmon, maybe deserving of a Signature Series card. I don't know. The Rockies are pretty tough. They've pretty much covered everyone, but I would like to see Chris Iannetta. Moving on to the Los Angeles Dodgers, another tragedy that we haven't seen a SIG card yet. This might be the last year we have Matt Kemp in the game as well. I would love to see a Signature Series Matt Kemp card. That would be super legit. A lot of big names that have been missed for the Dodgers so far. A couple more that come to mind. Don Sutton had an amazing career with the Dodgers. I did not know until I looked it up on Baseball Reference that Don Sutton pitched for 22 seasons. That is absolutely ridiculous. That's such a long career. But yeah, Signature Series Don Sutton would be cool. Throws a lot of junk on this game, and a screwball, which would be fun to use. Also, Sean Green and Steve Garvey, yet to get to as far as Signature Series cards go. Down to the last two teams now in the San Diego Padres, another team that they've done a pretty good job with that was kind of hard to find players for, but I definitely think a Signature Series Luke Gregerson would be super cool. He's had a great career, been in the league for a long time. His SIG card would probably have a sinker as well, which would be pretty interesting to use. And he throws pretty slow, which is kind of annoying. His SIG card would probably be pretty similar to Sergio Romo, so definitely would be a fun card to use. Additionally, we could see a Signature Series Chase Headley. I think he'd be more than deserving of a Signature Series card, just from the longevity of his career. And then one more guy, maybe not deserving as far as production, but as far as longevity, I think Will Myers is not terribly out of the question for a Signature Series card for the San Diego Padres. And finally, rounding it out for the video is the San Francisco Giants, who actually have a ton of guys that are deserving of Signature Series cards and that haven't got them yet. Christy Mathewson, obviously a big one. Will Clark comes to mind, another big one that hasn't gotten a SIG Series card yet that is definitely deserving. Another one to think about, Orlando Cepeda, yet to get a Signature Series card. Additionally, Pablo Sandoval, probably deserving of a Signature Series card. It would be interesting to see if he had catcher secondary on that card too. That would be pretty cool to have another switch hitting catcher in the game. And finally, some guys to think about for the San Francisco Giants that are still in the league but at the tail end of their careers. Signature Series Hunter Pence and Signature Series Melky Cabrera would be pretty cool cards to try on this game. I tricked you guys. There's one more round of SIG cards that I would consider free agents, because these are guys that have hopped around to a bunch of teams over the course of their career but are probably still deserving of Signature Series cards, so I just have no idea what team they would be on their SIG card. But a couple cool names to mention here. Jason Hamill has had a pretty good career as a starting pitcher. Rajay Davis has had an amazing career, and his Signature Series card would have 99 speed, I'm sure, so that would be pretty fun to use. Oliver Perez, this is the most confusing one. Don't know if he'd be a starter or a reliever. Have no idea what team he would be on a SIG card, but definitely worth mentioning. And then finally, Fernando Rodney, who has pitched for like half the teams in the league but has had an amazing career, still going at it at like 42 years old. It's absolutely amazing. Would love to see a Signature Series Fernando Rodney as well. So that's going to wrap it up for the video. That was the best players from each MLB team that have not received a Signature Series card yet in MLB The Show 19. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more MLB The Show content. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.